It's now been 3 calendar days since Game Freak came face to face with the most disastrous data breach in their history. Source codes, unused sprites and work documents for some of their most well-known titles have all been released to the public. Before I get back into what's properly changed in the last 24 hours, I think I'm going to repeat exactly how this leak has taken form. Essentially, a leaker or a team of leakers, we're still not quite sure, got 1 terabyte of encrypted data directly from Game Freak. And they're slowly going through and uncovering what all of the data is by decrypting it and opening it in ways I don't understand. This means that all of the leaked information that's coming out is going in chronological order, so in the beginning, everything that was leaked about Generation 3 came out before everything that was leaked about Generation 4, and then Generation 5, and that's where it stood at the time I made the previous video. And now it's the turn of Pokemon X&Y, personal favourites of mine. Some of this stuff is absolutely mind-blowing, and I think it's also important to mention that at the time I'm recording this, it's the longest break in information we've had since the beginning of the leak. It's been 6 or 7 hours since anything else has come out. It's well worth watching this day in particular because after I go through the X and Y information, there was some absolutely insane details about upcoming and unreleased titles that were also released, and I'll be talking through all of that as well. So very shortly after we got this beta footage from a very early Pokemon Black and White, Centro Leaks declared it was X and Y time. Our first uncovered X and Y data is this prototype footage from a brand new approach to battling. It's heavily inspired by the Unova games, even using a 3D model of the female Unova trainer that never appears in X and Y. It's an incredibly bizarre and dynamic insight into the very first earliest days of X and Y, and it looks almost nothing like the final product. We have a slightly better look at this prototype now, and I can also confirm that the files are called the Masuda camera, so I guess Junichi Masuda was pressing for this to be a thing behind the scenes, and he was ultimately unsuccessful. It does seem like the reason why this version of battling never came to fruition is because it was too ambitious for the 3DS. This looks almost like Pokemon Battle Revolution or something on the Wii, so it may have just been something that was impossible for the 3DS to consistently handle, and I would totally understand that. We're not entirely sure why the default female trainer from Unova, Hilda, was used so much in early development, but I guess that it was just something they used to grapple with the new 3D model technology. Because keep in mind, Pokemon X and Y were the first mainline games that didn't have a pixel art style. Pretty much every developer tool between Black 2 and White 2 and X and Y changed, which is both why it's taken so long to decrypt files from the leak relating to X and Y, but also probably why they decided to use a Hilda model to begin with in X and Y's development. We see there's an up-close battle version and also an overworld version. So the style would ultimately remain the same, it's just incredibly interesting because it's a Unova trainer as out of place as you can get. Now, this is what I woke up to this morning, an X and Y test map. I cannot believe this exists. My very first thought when I was looking on this was it reminds me very much of the FanWorks Super Mario Galaxy 3 test maps on the DS, which I made a video of in 2019 as well, which is quite a while ago. It goes without saying that a test map like this obviously should have existed. It's what they need to sort of get the hang of everything. The Pokemon Center looks very much like Black 2 and White 2, so it was very influential in the early days. Moving on from using Hilda, here is a beta X and Y protagonist. Needless to say, they look incredibly different to the Serena that we would end up getting. Across different builds of the prototype, we slowly see how the main default X and Y characters take form. Here we actually have video footage of the test map. It includes a debug menu, different times of day, movement speeds, and all that sort of thing. Now this is interesting. We have the beta design for Klefki, which doesn't look massively different. The beta design for Howlucha, which was just differently coloured. And the beta design for Volcanion, one of the last Kalos Pokemon to ever be introduced in the anime or games. I couldn't believe I was seeing this. Obviously it looks closer to shiny Volcanion in the end, but it's just insane, isn't it, that we can now just see this? Then there was the absolute bombshell that Mega Jynx was a cut Mega Evolution in X and Y. That's fact. This apparently confirms it. I don't read Japanese and I don't trust any translation tools or website to do a direct translation from this, but it's been verified and shown pretty much everywhere that this confirms Mega Jynx existed. Their ability was Magic Guard, for the one person that cares. Something else that sets X and Y files apart from the others within the leak is that a lot of them are password protected. Now, no doubt there are ways past this, even police have ways of getting through passwords when they need to. So really it is just a waiting game because there is a massive amount, I think it's something like 80% of all of the X and Y content is behind a password wall. And that's where we are in terms of X and Y beta footage. There's just so much that can't come out. I guarantee you that at least half of the password protected X and Y files will never be released. So that's everything relating to X and Y, and let me tell you, if 10-year-old me heard any of that, I would have exploded, but that doesn't hold a candle to the news that came out the afternoon before. We were so inquisitive and confused that nothing relating to the upcoming Pokemon Legends ZA was included in the leak, and it turns out quite a lot was. We know that the English translation is 50% complete, and oh yeah, someone has the source code. That's right, at least one leaker has the source code to X and Y, and has some kind of bootable file, like some runnable version, as they've been disclosing quite a lot of information on a private Discord somewhere about it. Apparently some of the side quests aren't working, but it's getting on quite well. I'm actually going to move on, because it isn't just the source code for Legends ZA that's come out. The source code for Generation 10, which will come out in about 3 years, has also been released and is in the hands of these leakers. Somebody has an actual workable, usable build of the next Pokemon generation in the year of our Lord 2024 AD. This will not be announced for another 2 years, and someone can already play it. I shudder to think what state it's in, and we will never know because if any footage of Generation 10 came out today, somebody would be arrested. I know that I'm mainly focusing on the games, but it's important to note that a lot of stuff relating to the anime has come out as well, such as a cancelled movie that was going to be all about cyberbullying and some kind of plant and Mew and all of that, which is quite interesting to hear about. It's interesting to note that 2 Pokemon movies are in development hell, one in 2021 and one in 2022. We don't know what state they're currently in. There was also one being developed before COVID, one Pokemon movie that is, and we aren't sure if COVID put a stop to those plans and they just never went back to it. But a lot of movies were partway through development and then just stopped being made. We also now know that Detective Pikachu was going to be a trilogy. The first one, much like the other movies, was in development hell for many years, and they just decided never to go back to it. And obviously, a sequel was never formally announced, so we don't know how early or late into development things started to go wrong. Again, this is just more information that's been disclosed only through this leak. We would have no idea otherwise. There's apparently another anime series coming, codename Reload, 12 episodes planned. Literally know nothing about it. Game Freak themselves even put out a statement acknowledging, yes, we've been leaked, but they didn't mention anything to do with the games, obviously. But there is a serious side to this, where a lot of the personal information of employees at Game Freak and Nintendo have been released. Nobody is publishing that because we have morals, but that is scary, and Game Freak are putting things in place to make sure it can never happen again. So where we stand at the moment at the end of day 3 is a lot of stuff about the anime has come out. We now have beta footage of X and Y, which a lot of people, myself included, were waiting on. The source code for Pokemon Legends ZA and Generation 10 has leaked, and we're now waiting on what seems to be the majority of the X and Y content, and also anything from Sun and Moon up till the present day, not including Legends ZA because that's already out. So a lot of stuff on Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield hypothetically to come. Updates are getting few and far between. This may be as far as we can go, because we're only up to early 3DS and a lot of stuff is password protected. It's just different because the tools changed and so forth. It does seem now like we're past the worst of it. Worst for them, obviously, because I'm thriving. But it does seem like the majority of the stuff has come out now. And let me tell you, this has been historic. I know it's an incredibly strange thing to say, but I would like to briefly go over the closure that this leak has given me. Because I'm growing out of Pokemon. Scarlet and Violet helped that quite a lot. I was not a big fan of them at all. Nothing grabbed me in the promotion. I never bought the game. And this leak has helped me move on from Pokemon quite a lot. Other than X and Y, anything Legend ZA adjacent next year in the anime, I will definitely tune in for. I will be playing Legend ZA next year or the year after, depending on if it gets delayed. But This leak has provided me with documents relating to the origin of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, Diamond being the first video game I ever played. I now know where even like the most fundamental ideas in that first boardroom meeting came from. And that's insane just to like follow their thinking from the very beginning. It means so much to me. It's also seeing like I love beta footage and lost media and all sorts. So everything that's come out from the DS era is massively important to me. And X and Y as my second favorite region, and at times my favorite, the most nostalgic, because it's an era that I actually grew up in. I can't believe what I'm seeing, really. But it has provided me with a lot of closure. So there's that.